You know, in the 80s, it was a different era. You can just pick on anybody. Okay, that's part of the reason why us Gen Xers be like, you Gen Zs and millennials are super weak. We were bullied our whole life. That's a part of growing up, is being bullied. It makes you tough.
Riding high on the west side, looking for a hood rat to play. Won't you come out and play? Won't you come out and play?
Martha Wash was born and raised in San Francisco in the Western Addition. She started singing when she was a few years old, first in church and then in school choirs. She got a lot of support. Church people are good about that, she said once. If they think you just hum good, they'll put you up on chairs and tables and encourage you. Wash was a soprano, and her voice could kill you dead right where you're standing under Jesus. Remember that great big scandal with CNC Music Factory when they had that tall, slim, not so beautiful girl singing that part, Good Vibrations? That was terrible because I could never be a Martha Wash. But remember when CNC Music Factory tricked us all into believing that was her voice coming from that teeny weeny skitty body? Okay, and that ain't never happened before where we had a big voice coming from a teeny weeny skinny body since with the Whitney. It only comes once in a lifetime, right? And then it came out that she was lip syncing, and y'all dragged Milli Vanilli for doing the same thing that skinny bee from CNC Music Factory did. That man went insane, child. It's not even funny what y'all did to them Milli Vanillis. Martha Wash's voice is so big and grand that to me, it is unmatched, untouched. She did an impromptu version song on the Arsenio Hall show. She need to clear her throat. She need to go. She need to do that, and that shit came out perfectly. Martha Wash is a force to be reckoned with, okay? And mixed with that other big girl, when the big girls can sing. When she was 17, her gospel choir at Poly High School raised $25,000 from bake sales and car washes and donations from their parents. And Mayor Alito and she and 35 other black kids toured Europe for 2 weeks singing. In February 1976, she was just out of high school singing with a gospel group called Now for News of the World, living at home and looking for a job when she got a call from a friend telling her to audition for Sylvester. Damn, she was that young? Singing like that? For the Sylvester? Martha Wash had seen Sylvester perform at the Berkeley Community Theater in 1974 when he'd opened for Billy Preston. She had not been ready. He had worn his sequined hot pants, his black neck top with wing-like silver shoulders, and his curly black Shirley Temple wig. For his encore, Aretha Franklin's Sweet Sweet Baby. Since You've Been Gone, he'd changed into a floor-length lavender sequin gown. While everybody else was moving, Martha had just stood there with her mouth open, staring. Who is he? She thought. Who is he? What is he? He just kind of got away with me, she says. I had never seen anything like it or anybody like him before. He was this big, beautiful woman. He blew Billy Preston off the stage and he wore me out. She talked about it to friends for the next couple of days and gone on about the business of being a teenager. Heading over to the audition out near the hospital 2 days later, taking her big self downstairs into a cramped, half-dark basement. She did not put two and two together. Sylvester was there, in jeans and some bangles, and two white girls who had just finished their audition were chatting with Brent Thompson and Tip Warwick. I was growing weary from seeing these little tiny bird-like girls come in and do-bop around. Sylvester said later. Then Martha came in. I took one look at her and knew she could sing. This was all new and strange to Martha coming out of the church, but she sang a song and then bantered with Sylvester a bit. Martha had no idea that Sylvester was the big, beautiful woman who had gotten away with her that night in Berkeley. It would be days before she figured that out. But Sylvester knew who she was, even though he had never seen her before. When he later told it, Sylvester buffed and polished the story down to its sparkly essence. I just asked her to sing 1 or 2 notes, and she sang them. I said, sing this note, and she sang at the note, and said, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. When she came back, she sang the note and sang above the note. Whether it was a couple of notes or a song, what Martha sang was more than enough. Sylvester looked at Tip, and Tip looked at Sylvester. There's one. Their eyes agreed, because Sylvester said he wanted 2 big, beautiful women on either side of him, so he got his one. All right, like this bitch right here. I'm about to put her in my purse and take her home. There's one, their eyes agreed. Sylvester told the white girls they could leave and turned to Martha before they were even halfway up the stairs. Stop, girl, he said. Oh, honey, you're the one. You're hot, girl. Now, do you know another woman as big, black, and beautiful as you who can sing like you? Oh, yeah, Martha Wash said. I've got the girl for you. She phoned Izora Rhodes. Martha and Izora had been singing together in News of the World for just a little while, but they'd known each other for years from community choirs. Having known Martha since she was a snotty-nosed brat running around church, singing her behind off, Izora called Martha the baby on account of her girth and her 7 children. Martha called Izora Mother Earth. Y'all, Izora had 7 kids by 1975. Is Izora a damn cancer? Yep. What did I say? Cancer, July 6, 1942. You know them goddamn cancers will populate the universe. But, that makes sense. Martha went to Church of God in Christ, which was just across an alley from Izora's Baptist church. Sometimes they could hear each other's choirs drifting across the open space. Izora was an alto, and when she felt the spirit, sometimes even when she didn't, she could bring up a growl that started down low and roared up out of her like a rough wave. Pause again. Another thing about cancer women, I don't know too many of them that can't sing. The only issue with cancer women is that you don't find a lot of them in the business because they're just good with being a mommy. They don't really aspire to pursue fame because they're good at being Mother Earth. Like Martha, she'd been singing since she was a little girl. Before her family moved to San Francisco from Texas, she'd led the San Francisco Inspirational Choir, studied classical music at the San Francisco Conservatory, taught piano and voice, worked the keyboard at all kinds of churches. She'd done time as a bartender and a nurse's aide. In 1976, she was raising her girl and her 6 boys on her own, just like a cancer, with help from her parents and godparents. By the time she was all done, she'd have 11 children and a new husband's last name, Armstead. Martha was a big girl, but Izora was even bigger. Izora had seen Sylvester perform once before, too, at the cabaret. It wasn't no big thing, she says. I've been around the gay life all my life from church. A lot of gay people going to church and in choirs and singing, so that was nothing new. That was no big thing, especially not in San Francisco. When Martha called her, she went down to 6th and Judah, a neighborhood that was always foggy, where Sylvester often used a dank basement rehearsal space. She started down the stairs, my big butt getting ready to go through the door, Izora says, and Sylvester looked up, took a glance and said, "Come on." He hustled her back out to his car before she even had a chance to catch her breath. Izora got into Sylvester's Volkswagen, taking up most of the back seat, and Sylvester and Martha got in the front. They drove across the Golden Gate Bridge since Sylvester was due at the keyboardist's house in San Rafael in practice songs for a demo tape. Nowadays, you cannot big girl shame, right? This is the reason why you cannot find this particular skit on YouTube or nowhere, girl. Oh my God, if I find it, I'm telling you, I'm going to put it on this video, okay? It's hilarious. It was a skit that Eddie Murphy did back in his SNL days. Well, it was one of Eddie Murphy's greatest performances, child, but you cannot shame. You cannot weight shame no more, okay? So anyway, Eddie Murphy had this character, I think it was called Little Richard Simmons, and I was reminded of this particular character because my sister had started singing this song. And I said, "Oh my God, how do you even remember this song?" Child, I tried to Google it, couldn't find a skit, nowhere. I'm not trying to fat shame. That's not what I'm trying to do. You know, in the 80s, it was a different era. You can just pick on anybody, okay? That's part of the reason why us Gen Xers be like, you Gen Zs and millennials are super weak. We were bullied our whole life. That's a part of growing up, is being bullied. It makes you tough. Child, if I could find this skit, oh my God, I am so sorry. I do not mean to fat shame me being an obese girl myself. Well, you know, I toggle between obese and heavyweight all the time, but baby, let me see if I can find this thing.
Ready, set, go, fat, go. I know a girl whose butt ain't low, she's flat. Let her fat, fat, she's flat. Let her fat, fat, she's flat. Let her fat, fat, and step on your foot, she's mashed toast.
So being as though that me and my sister both are big girls now, child, we just found that hilarious. I forgot completely about it. They drove across the Golden Gate Bridge since Sylvester was due at a keyboardist's house in San Rafael to practice songs for a demo tape. Izora and Sylvester and Martha had their first rehearsal right then in the car going over the bridge, singing to the radio and then finding their parts in a couple of gospel tunes. Martha and Izora would just fall in on either side of Sylvester's falsetto voice, Martha's soprano riding on top of his, Izora's alto rolling in just under. We went in the studio the next night, Izora says, and we was with him ever since. Professionally, Izora and Martha became the 2 tons of fun, but Sylvester called them the girls. They called themselves the tons, or sometimes tonnage. Pause. So one of the first times I remember hearing Sylvester, I was in Michigan Park listening to the radio, and it was "You Are My Friend." Man, it was the most amazing because the voice was strange. I didn't know whether it was a male or female singing a song. It's him going, "They don't need them dresses. They don't need them juries. I've been around and you were here all the time." I can't hit that thing, but oh my gosh. And even as a little girl, I was just so mesmerized about how he acknowledged the background singers. It was almost like he was paying homage to them. It was like he knew that they had greatness in power, and if it was not for their combination, he wouldn't be. These girls could sing. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. And to this day, every time I hear You Are My Friend by Sylvester. It gives me the same feeling it did when I was like 11 or 12 years old hearing that song for the first time. Amazing. They used to come to rehearsal and each of them would have 2 bags from Burger King, Brent Thompson says. They would sit there, and as soon as they had eaten their Whoppers, it would be time for them to sing. And they just throw those mouths open, full of hamburger, and hit every note just like that. Wait a minute, girl, them Whoppers be having a lot of onions on them. Oh, I know that booth was stinky. Ooh. They knew they were sexy. Men had been known to drop to their knees, declare their love, and offer them bags of weed. They could move their bodies. If you were waiting for the skinny girl in the tight gown to come out, you could die waiting. Sylvester christened Izora the Queen Mother, and it fit. I had so damn many children, says Izora, who was known to swear like a sailor. She took care of everyone, and something was always on the stove at her house. Because she's a Cancer. She treated Sylvester just like her own. That was my baby, she says. Usually they'd rehearse at 6 and Judah, or sometimes in Brent's basement, or sometimes in Izora's mother's basement on Lion Street, which had a grand piano and Izora's kids in every available spot. At rehearsal on Lion Street, the kids would be running around, jumping on Sylvester, tickling him until he waved his orange polished fingernails at them. Mrs. Zora, he would scream, "Come get your monsters! Come get your little war orphans off of me, Queen Mother!" Izora would run them upstairs, but they'd be back down soon enough. Soon after they joined up, Brent got Sylvester and the 2 tons a couple of out-of-town gigs, Portland and Seattle, where they played places like Shelley's Leg, a gay bar, owned by a woman named Shelley, whose leg had been blown off by Canton Fire at an annual parade, and who had used the settlement money to buy the place. With all those mouths to feed, Izora still worked 2 jobs, and Martha, who was a secretary at UC Hospital, wasn't about to give up her day job either. "We weren't making squat," says Martha. Sylvester's 3-piece suit disappeared piece by piece in a weeks-long striptease. The vest disappeared in one show, a few sequins in its place. The jacket dropped out of another show, replaced by some feathers. It was as if flanked now by his 2 large bodyguards. Sylvester could let himself be. Brent never knew how far he might take it. Usually Sylvester wore loose, low-cut, flowing shirts that underemphasized his girth. Short hair, a bit of makeup, and lots of jewelry. But if the mood struck, Sylvester would dress up in full regalia, Izora says, and he and the tons would come down the aisle carrying on right past Brent, who was clutching her heart and having a hissy. Something clicked. Inside into place when Sylvester and the tons got together. Something that wasn't there with the hot band, White Boys, for all that they could cook. Something that wasn't there when Peter Minton, for all the beautiful oddness he and Sylvester shared. Something that wasn't even there with his black drag queen singers, for all the fierceness they projected. Izora and Martha were whom he came from and who he was. Martha and Izora and that kind of black, that what I call basic black. On stage, Martha and Izora were not off to the side or swaying and cooing way back where you might forget about them. The tons had about as much in common with Dawn as Sylvester had with Tony Orlando, nor were they edging themselves into his spotlight. Now he's always going to be the diva, and you ain't going to top Sylvester anyway, Izora says. When you do background, you push whoever's leading. You made them sound good. Without having to talk about it, the 3 of them could summon spirits. They went to a place where black people live, as Amari Baraka said, of rhythm and blues, a place in the spiritual precincts of its emotional telling where black people move in absolute openness and strength. When they went to that place, they would need to look good too. So Sylvester dressed them and made them up. When he could, he made them outfits that were shimmering and bright, reds with golds, blues with silvers, oranges, or buy something off this rack at Lane Bryant. He wanted them to help him create a scene you'd remember. And we did look fabulous, Izora says. Martha Wash took a trip over to Honey Records in Oakland in late 1976 to audition for some gospel studio work. Honey was a small company run in a converted Safeway market by Harvey Fuqua.